say, or I guess like, what really is the difference in your mind between like how you approach an e-com product or page versus any other kind of like marketing piece that you might work with?
So for e-com, like most people that are buying something that you like, they're not a super low emotional state. Like they don't need this butter knife. They'll live without the butter knife, but their life will be better with the butter knife.
Yeah, okay? Your toast won't be so fucked up.
So you can't come out hard charging like, you're gonna fucking die if you don't have this butter knife. That's not gonna work. So that's the biggest difference is how you approach it. Because like, again, you're gonna be just fine without the butter knife, but you should get it.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Streamline to Scale community for visionaries and operators. We're doing our Friends Friday live. We got Rob Tidwell here, a copywriting expert, marketing strategist, and CRO, who's the secret weapon behind a lot of ClickBank offers and a whole bunch of, the high business owners with some really crazy converting offers are utilizing Rob as their go-to guy working behind the scenes. And he's here to share some awesome marketing secrets with us. So thank you so much for being here, Rob. I really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. We'll see what kind of knowledge I can share with your people. Excited to be on today. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. I know it. Every time I have a conversation with you, like I think like the first time we met was in a copy accelerator, one of those like breakout rooms. And that like first conversation, like we were just talking about something, and you started just going off about it was the back ends, upsells and downsells, and just how you structure them and everything. And I ended up utilizing it for a client's offer not long after that, and it helped load. So I think like more than anything, you tend to just spit gold without realizing it.
That's awesome. No, I'm glad to hear that. I do. I'm pretty good at understanding upsells and why they work. Just it's funny, everything I've learned from other people. So I'm just like, I don't know. I just regurgitate the stuff I learned and apply. So like the upsells, the first event I ever went to was a copy accelerator event in 2020, right? Like February. And there was a talk by, oh God, I'm blanking on his name, but the Credit Secrets guy. And he gave a whole talk. Yes, Jay, thank you. Jay did a talk on upsells, and at the time I was like, I knew what an upsell was, but I was brand new. But I just started studying that and like why, what actually happens when someone lands on an upsell and what's going through their head. When you understand that and how to structure the right offer, upsells are pretty easy if you think about them in the right way. So it was JD Bolt, and then of course I've learned a lot from Alan Sultanich, if I'm even saying his name right. Obviously. So yeah, I think he's the one that like actually came up with like the upsell structure, if you will, that Jay kind of shared with us. And I've been using that same structure since 2020. So, and it works. Like I just wrote a funnel for someone and they're getting like 51% take rate on their UTO1, which is good. I'll take that. So
yeah, that's awesome. What is it like? How do you go about like structuring like what that upsell is going to be? Like what is your process for that? And like,
yeah. So anytime you buy a front end product, you're creating a problem. So whatever you've sold them, you've created a problem, and you have to figure out what that problem is and solve it with the upsell. That's the best way I describe. So I'm just going to let's stick with Jay's example here. Jay and Alan's Credit Secrets. So the problem they created is the front end is a book on how you read the book on how to fix your credit, right? Well, what's the problem you created? Well, now you have to do all the fucking work. You have to read the book and do the work. Well, no one wants to do that. So what is the first upsell? Software that does all that work for you, right? So think about, I'm writing a funnel right now. It's for compression socks for blood sugar. So for diabetics, right? Because they have problems with their feet and circulation. So what do you think I mean, the socks are a good start, but what do you think the upsell is going to be? It's a supplement for blood sugar because, you know what I mean? Even though I didn't create that problem, it's still addressing the problem of, okay, we got your feet taken care of, but what about, the rest of your body? So I always just try and think of how do I solve the problem? And sometimes the problem is it's just faster or better. So like, a lot of times, like I'll use the language like this is putting the front end product on steroids. So if you maybe, okay, so let's take like a BizOp example. Let's say I teach you how to write emails. Let's say I'm teaching you how to write copywriting for emails. Okay, and you're studying this, and you're like, you buy the course, and you go through all the course. You're like, oh, that's cool, but I'm kind of new and I don't know where to start. Well, guess what? My first upsell is going to be templates for your email, right? So you're always just trying to figure out like what's the next thing they need. And that's just how I think about upsells in general. And then I just kind of use the structure that I've been using of reinforcing the fact that the purchase they just made was a good decision, making them feel good about that, and then explaining why the next thing they need it, basically. As a copywriter and marketer, I'm always just trying to think what's going on in the prospect's head. And that's how I think about upsells, really. It's what's going through their head. And a lot of people, like, I guess you get in the industry and you've been selling stuff for so long, like you forget. John next door doesn't even know what an upsell is. He's not expecting an upsell and people just ignore that. And I think that's a huge, huge mistake is like, you need to address like, they just bought something and now they're on another page and they don't know what the fuck's going on. You need to address that. You need to calm their anxiety, make them feel good about the money they just spent so that they spend more for this thing that you have that will help them. So that's my spiel on upsells.
Help them get better results and everything too. It's just, it's just figuring out like we're figuring out what the next progression is in helping them. I mean, it's not just, it's there's a lot of them that you can go. Like what's the number of upsell? Like, cause I've seen some people with some funnels that are like 6 upsells and I'm like, holy biscuits. Like, what do you find is like a good number to keep it at where it's not getting too?
I would say 2 or 3 at the most. So it's a game. You're playing a game, right? And it depends on what your end goal is. The more upsells you have in your path, the more pissed off your customer is going to be. Okay. Do you like going through that shit? Because I don't normally. And by the time you're on the 6th one, you're like, man, fuck this. I don't want anything to do with this person.
Terrible.
And that starts off your relationship with them in a bad way because they just feel like abused. So if you want to maintain, and if you're just selling your one-off and you don't care that you're doing a money grab, then you do your thing. But if you're going to do what everyone that I work with does, and that's break even on the front end, and then make your money on the back end, email. You don't want to piss off your people by having 6 upsells. So there's a fine line there. And I think 2 is good. 3 is the most I personally go with. I've seen the 6 and I'm just like, dude, you're just pissing everyone off. You're pissing the people off. They're exhausted. Decision fatigue is very real. You can't make that many decisions. You're just like, so I don't recommend doing that. But to each their own, right?
That's for more like low emotional. If I'm being honest, it feels like it's more for low emotional state people who are in a very fear place. And those higher, more aggressive, like, 5 or 6 upsells are people that are really kind of targeting that.
I definitely think you're right with the low emotional state. And I mean, as far as, work with a lot of these people, like people that buy stuff off ClickBank tend to be low emotional state. Not all of them, and that's why the longer form stuff works. Because that's what works for people in a low emotional state. The short form is for the other side. So, I mean, I get it. Everyone, there's a thing like once people start buying, you want to, the whole idea is you want to capture that buying spree. But again, I don't think it's wise to have an endless stream of upsells. People are going to get pissed. I get pissed, so I get it, you know?
I know. And we're marketers, so like we know that it's there and it's coming and we're used to it. So I get annoyed anyway, but I go through them because, you know, you obviously want to see like, you know, the progression and what everything's doing. But I think for a customer, it's difficult having that many options. Like you said, you know, the decision fatigue is real. And I think it's a little intense to go through that much. But I guess in terms of LTV too, like, you know, long-term value of your customer, are they really going to want to keep following your stuff if you're sending that much? Like, what do you find really helps kind of boost LTV for your customers and offers?
Well, not hammering them with 6 upsells, first of all.
Good start.
Yeah, and then just kind of, you know, doing the email thing without hammering them with a bunch of affiliate offers every day, because I don't like that, and I don't think other people like it either. Again, that is a business model you can do, and you can make money that way. But it's a churn and burn. I mean, once again, you can do the churn and burn style. It's not really my style. And again, the people I work with and the offers I work on are really, you're not making money on the front end. You're really just trying to break even so you can sell on the back end and keep these, you know, so that relationship is really important. So the nurture emails and just not pissing them off, you know, just that simple, and providing like you know, giving them what they want, I guess.
Providing actual value and like educational value too, especially in the nurture emails and in the back end sequences, like, you know, just constantly providing value instead of only promoting things. It's a big one. Like the churn and burn I see is just those straight promotions. And I mean, you're just constantly spending more money on new ads for new people because nobody wants to stick around for that.
Yeah, so that's not the best way to go about it, in my opinion. But yeah, so that's why, back to the upsells, just you know, jumping all over the place. That's why these upsells are so important, because without the upsells, none of these funnels I work on would break even. You have, like, in today's world, you have to have an upsell or 2 or 3 to cover your ad costs and the cost to acquire a customer. So that's why they're so important to have these upsells, or you're going to lose money on the front end. That's just the way it is with the ad costs today and how much it costs to acquire customers. So it's not just a luxury to have an upsell anymore. Like these days, just to break even, you got to have that dialed in.
I think especially, I agree. I think especially because of like that, you know, the free plus shipping books and like all the freebies that you're giving away, like all that stuff costs money and it takes time to build it out. It takes time and money to build out the funnels and everything. So in order for you to break even, you actually do have to have some sort of an upsell that they're actually interested in purchasing. So Isaac said something interesting here in the chat about some people, about the email lists. Some people have multiple lists under different names so they can send the same offer multiple times without fatiguing it as much, instead of the same email.
Yeah, I've seen that. That can work. But yeah, I think it works. Not everyone is as in touch with email as we are. Like, I'm going to figure that out probably. But people don't tend to care.
Yeah.
Also, I don't like, you know, some people that, you know, the folks that email 4 times a day. Not for me. I like entertainment too. Like, instead of just value is one thing, but entertainment's valuable to me. Have a personality.
Yeah.
Think about a lot of people. Think about the brands you like. Whether it's like a personal brand or whatever. Usually, you're gravitated, like, you like the person, you like the. I hate to say branding, but, you know, just the vibe that comes with it. So I think people want to be entertained. The world's boring. I almost like infotainment. That's a word that I learned a few years ago. I believe in that stuff. I think that it keeps, you know, as a copywriter, you want to keep people reading. And, you know, I've always heard people shit on like don't use comedy and copy. Well, I actually don't really agree with that. It depends on how you use it, because comedy disarms. It disarms people. It gets them loosened up. So just there's a lot of in the marketing world, people love to give absolutes and tell you what to do, and I'm just like, I don't fucking listen to any of it.
Yeah, I don't know if there is an absolute. Like, I feel like every audience is very different, but the reason, like you were saying, is like the reason you follow somebody or a brand is because you like their information, you're being entertained by what they're offering. You know, maybe it's educating you, maybe it's entertainment, maybe it's a combination. Or, you know, but you're following a person and a brand for that person and brand because you want what they have, because you believe in what they are offering, and because you want that end result. And so I think that's like, I don't know. I feel like I just lost my train of thought there, but.
Do you know who's good at this? I'll give you a great example, and probably everyone here knows who Ian Stanley is, but he's a master at this. He's a master at it. Why you can learn to write email from a dozen or a couple dozen guru, like not just one person teaching email, but people that go to Ian because of his personality. He's funny. He's always fucking off. And he just crushes it by being himself. Actually, I went to an event, a freelancers event a few years ago, and he had like this levels of like making money. And like the top level is just to make money by being yourself, which is essentially what he does. He's like, sometimes he says inappropriate jokes. He's always fucking off, and this audience loves it. I like it. I like being entertained. Versus like, I don't know. Everyone likes what they like. So I think there's a lot to it, more than just. And of course, as a market, like I'm always selling the outcome. So that's always important. Like, what's the unique mechanism? What's the outcome that we're selling? That's really the most important thing. But to get the message across, I think that personality, maybe even a little humor, like it goes a long way as opposed to being dry, especially with so much content. We're in 2023, like, oh my God. The last thing I need is like a dry VSL, just boring as hell, right? So, and as a marketer, I'll tell you the number one thing that works for me is really to keep them reading is curiosity. And I kind of consider that entertainment. I just made this up right now. I don't know. Okay. Because you're like, you have to know what's happening. So you're like, what's going to happen? So to me, curiosity is like the biggest thing I use to, it's not entertainment, but it keeps them reading, if you will, because you always want to know what's happening. So that's what I've been doing the past couple of years, leaning on curiosity heavily, because it just works. It works.
Could you give us an example of that? Because, like, I mean, it makes total sense. Like, it's you know, we want to keep going down that hole. So, like, what would be a good example of, you know, how you would use curiosity in a funnel or VSL or anything like that?
Sure. So, like, I like to use them at curiosity a lot in leads. So, I was doing research for a project, and I found out humans only use like 8% of their DNA. So, the first line of this 30-minute VSL was, did you know 90% of our DNA we don't even use is junk DNA? That's curiosity to me. And then I'm like, well, once you figure out, you know, so that's just an example. Like the first line was like, did you know we only use 8% of our DNA? Once you figure out what the rest is about, blah, blah, blah. So curiosity. Yeah, that's an example. But that's kind of, we're all like hint at the mechanism, the unique mechanism, if you will, without giving it away. Like, I can't think of an example right now, but yeah, it's always just hinting without telling them so that they can keep reading or watching, whatever.
Sure.
It works.
How do you, like, what process do you use to like figure out, like, you know, what that unique mechanism is going to be and what that kind of like curiosity and that research and everything that you're going through to like get to this?
It's just, I go in the flow, and this is the deep work part where I have to actually do the hard work, sit down and So for like unique mechanism, that's always like, I don't want to work on a project if there's nothing special about it. Like it's hard to sell something with no unique mechanism. But so I'm always looking to tie it together. Like, I guess, how would I explain it? You want to take something that people know about and tie it into the thing they don't know about. So this unique mechanism uses something you don't know about, but I'm using an analogy to kind of to tie it to something you know, right? So that's, and you always want to give them like, I always try and give like visuals, like visual images in their head to try and like, you know, give them a visual image so that they can understand what I'm saying better. So I try and in my copy, like literally just like imagine a wine glass breaking because of an opera singer singing. Like that's what's happening when blah, blah. Like I like those kind of placing images in their head. And I think so I learned a lot about the mechanism from Stefan Georgi, and that's it kind of like you have to tie what they know into the mechanism so that they can, you know, make it easy to understand. That's our job. That's my job, is to make complex things easy to understand, which I know you wouldn't guess from this video, but that's why I'm a writer and not a speaker. But it's just explaining things in a way to make people understand it. So like, okay, let's take the Tommy Chong CBD. I didn't write that letter, but I converted it into a script, like an interview style script for Steve.
Nice.
And here's a great example, like explaining why most CBD doesn't work. It's because your body can't absorb it, right? So he's talking about the micro CBD, and it's like, imagine trying to throw a basketball through a chain link fence. Well, that's what's happening with the CBD you buy because the molecules are too big. I'm like, see, that's a great visual that most people can understand. So that's an example of like trying to tie a mechanism into something that they can picture. And he's like, oh, okay, I understand. I'm trying to throw the basketball through the chain link fence, but it's too big for the holes. So if I get a smaller ball, I can throw it through. That's the Tommy Chong CBD. That's the difference. I think most people can be like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing I try and do with mechanisms, is just make it simple and just use an analogy. And I always try and place visuals in their head.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like it makes it relatable and understandable for people. So first, like you're kind of approaching it with like, you know, authenticity, personality, making sure like it's easily understood and relatable, and that they can visualize what it is that you're trying to convey. So
the other thing is, it has to be, the hard part, one of the hard parts with the mechanism is it has to be something they haven't heard of before. If they've heard of it, or like, oh, I've heard of this, they're gone. They're automatically gone. So you have to say, this is something you've never seen before. This is different. And then tell them why it's different. I'm trying to think of think about the weight loss industry. Like, oh my God, it's like, how do you come up with something new when it's all been done? These people are so, and I don't write in that world. I don't like weight loss, but like you have to come up with, it's been done so many times, but you have to come up with something that sounds different. And that's why you hear all these, like, they make up these phrases. And yeah, that's the thing, that you're always trying to make it sound different, new. That's the key to mechanisms. Even like I wrote an advertorial for Trey Llewellyn last year, and it was for a fucking butter knife. Because he has some e-com stores. A bunch of them, I think. But this butter knife has like slots on it, so that when you spread the butter, it actually spreads it instead of just like fucking up your toast. And I'm like, there you go. There's a butter knife with a unique mechanism. That's what, and I'm like, dude, this is fucking great. And like you always have to be thinking like that. Like, how could a butter knife be unique? Well, it is, because it doesn't fuck up your toast.
That's a really good example of finding a unique mechanism, is just a butter knife that doesn't fuck up your toast. Like, you know,
right. That's why I use that example a lot. It's just like, it's hard. How do you come up with a unique mechanism for a butter knife? Like, you wouldn't think you can, but
Yeah, there's
And of
always,
course, I didn't come up with that. I mean, he already had the knife, so it wasn't like my idea. I'm just like, wow, this is cool and easy to write about because it has a unique mechanism built right in it.
well, okay, so you mentioned, so I know you do a lot of, VSL stuff, you've done some script stuff for Steve, and then you do ecom. So you do a lot of like DR and ecom, it sounds like. What would you say, or I guess like, what really is the difference in your mind between like how you approach an ecom product or page versus any other kind of like marketing piece that you might work with?
So for ecom, like most people that are buying something that you like, they're not a super low emotional state. Like they don't need this butter knife. They'll live without the butter knife, but their life will be better with the butter knife.
Yeah, your toast won't be so fucked up.
So you can't come out hard charging like, you're gonna fucking die if you don't have this butter knife. That's not gonna work. So that's the biggest difference is how you approach it. Because like, again, you're gonna be just fine without the butter knife, but you should get it. So I think that's the biggest difference is they're not low emotional state, so you don't need to twist the knife as much to get them to figure out that they need this product. The one thing I will say, and another thing I've learned from Stefan Georgi is so the thing that direct response people are good at are explaining the product better, saying what's different about it. That's like a big thing. So I write these pages and it's an ecom page, but I call it a ecom DR hybrid because I kind of take these principles from the direct response industry of explaining why it's different, the unique mechanism, and put it on the ecom page. And now instead of just a page with like a bottle on it and it says click here to buy, there's a blurb beneath it with fucking why it's different than all the other stuff. And then you have the testimony and the way you structure it and just incorporate some of these principles that the DR people are good at. And you just throw that onto an ecom page, it's going to crush like much, much better. And that's, again, everything I've learned and I'm talking about, I've learned from other people. This one's from Stefan Georgi. Like once I realized he kind of figured out like, hey, these ecom pages are weak. They're still selling stuff, but they're weak. What if we added these direct response elements that we know help move product? I'm like, that makes fucking good sense. So started doing that. And I don't do too much ecom, but if the right project comes along, I was working with a supplement company for the past year and a half or so, but they're kind of slowing down. I would call that ecom. So this guy is like, his son has autism. So he started his own supplement company to help with autism symptoms, all based on healing the gut, because the gut's connected to the vagus nerve. And come to find out, all these symptoms that like, people with autism have and ADHD, it's all because their gut's fucked up. So you heal the gut, among other things, inflammation. He's making like he's changing lives with these supplements. So that's the kind of supplement companies I like working with. But he's not like it's not a ClickBank DR or anything. It's ecom. So, and in his case, like he has so many testimonials coming in on a daily basis that like give me goosebumps. I'm like, just that should be your email every day. Just send a fucking testimony. And I got some of I think their most profitable emails one I wrote was just a testimonial I wrote. I was like, hey, check out this testimonial. I copy and paste it. And it was like, holy shit. It was the most profitable email they've had in 5 years. I'm like, wow. This is why, and don't get cute. As a marketer, some, especially new copywriters, new marketers, like, I gotta be creative and cute. Well, no one gives a fuck about that if you're not selling it. Like, they were trying to get creative and cute. I'm like, put a testimonial in your email because they're good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I forget what the question was, but yeah. Oh, the difference between ecom and DR. Yeah. The emotional states. But again, I've had a lot of success bringing these DR elements into the e-com world, and it helps.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge. And it's especially like, I love that, you're using the testimonials in that way, because it really does make a difference when you can see the testimonials and what's actually, how the product is helping people. Like it feels good and it feels better, but also like, if it feels good to us who are on the marketing side, like looking at it and working on it, imagine what it is for the customer. Like they want to feel that too. Like they want that kind of encouragement and that support and that, that trust that, this isn't just you saying something cute and funny and silly about it. This is actually like, it's helping people. And I think that's the number one thing, is like the whole point of what we're doing is to help people. Like we're not trying to trick them into buying stuff they don't need. We're trying to help them find a solution to, or an outcome, a solution to whatever problem that they're currently facing.
Well, if you have, and they're getting testimonials every day, and I'm reading, I'm like, I've never seen any business with testimonials like that. He's changing people's lives, and I'm like, you don't need to do anything else. Just post this, and it works. Like you're literally changing people's lives, and they're writing to you to tell you this, and there's video. That's all you need to put out. And I mean, and in marketing, social proof is part of it. Like, does this work? And that's so when people come to me with a project and like, I don't have any testimonials, I'm like, well, understand if it's a new thing, that's fine. There's no testimonials, but like that's going to hurt conversions as long as you're aware, like you need social proof that this shit works. It's important to most people. And if you have a testimonial that literally does all the work for you, like your supplement changed my son's life. He can go to school now. Before I couldn't send. People are going to buy your shit.
Yeah.
So the main thing I wanted to I was like, what am I going to say on this call? I don't know. I hope they have some interesting questions. The main thing I want to say is about being a marketer is stop overthinking this shit. That's what I've known. Everyone's like, they watch fucking videos from 8 different gurus and telling you 8 different fucking things. In the end, you're selling an outcome. And props to Alan Sultanich for really drilling this into my head. I feel like this was a revelation to me. Even though I always knew it as a marketer, you're selling the outcome. But we get away from it. So many marketers are like, they know you're selling an outcome, and then they start talking about the benefits. This compass has a magnetic, I don't know. Like they just start talking about shit no one fucking cares about instead of selling the outcome. And I think that's where people get caught up, even though they know better. So every day, if I sit down and work on a project, I'm like, what's the outcome here? Really, no one gives a fuck about your product, if I'm being honest. They care about themselves and what it's going to do for them. We know this, and we still write shitty marketing, right? Start with the end. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I find the more I just focus on the outcome instead of what the product is, it comes out easier, right? No one gives a fuck. No one cares about your course, fucking shirts. They care about themselves.
Yeah.
That's what people care about. I gotta walk away for like 10 seconds, but I have my.
All right.
I can still talk. I'll be right back.
Okay. I do want to say, like, I mean, that is so true. Like, and like Sharon said, start with the end, stop overcomplicating things. Like, I feel like we do that as marketers. Like everything is so overcomplicated, and really we're just needing to focus on like what the outcome is, like the whole point of like why they're here, how we're helping them, not all these little details and all this like mahumba jumba of it. It's just focusing on the outcome. But the other thing that I really enjoyed that Sharon said and Rob said a couple times is one is that you're learning from a lot of different people, which is incredibly important in my opinion. Like you should always be learning from a variety of people. Like, you know, it's a consistent learning, but there's also that point where you're always consuming and not doing. And some people kind of get stuck in that little area there. So I'm curious, like, how do you kind of balance that where you're not just always learning and you're actually implementing and doing what you're learning?
I don't have a good answer. I was just learning at first. In the past year or so, I've just gone under my rock and have been working my ass off, and I haven't really been learning. So I don't know how to, I ask myself this all the time. I want to balance out because I'm never going to stop learning, but it's also at a point, I took this from Dan Ferrari. It's at some point you have to say, give me the damn ball. You know how I personally have gotten better by doing more work, not by going to more webinars, you realize all these courses are the same shit, right? It's the same fucking thing told in a different way. The sooner you realize that, you're going to be a good marketer. Like the principles are the same. People don't change. Yeah, there's some tactics and that's not really important though. The important thing are the principles, and those don't change. People don't change. People are selfish, lazy. Selfish, that's the two main things you need to remember. They're selfish and lazy. I'm not, me included, like human beings.
They want to help themselves and they want a fast response. Like they want a fast solution to whatever issue is causing them pain in that moment or that day of life.
One thing I always remember that Justin Goff said that sticks in my head was people have unrealistic expectations. They want to lose weight without having to do anything. That's just an example, because it's a very common one. Like I want to be able to lose 30 pounds, but I don't want to have to give up my donuts and I don't want to have to get off the couch. That is what they want a golden bullet. So the closer you can get your offer to that easy golden bullet, the better off you're going to be. And that's the other thing. More important than the marketing is the offer. And that's something I help too. Like if your offer sucks, you can still sell shitty stuff with good marketing, but that's not really what I'm into. If you have a good offer, the marketing doesn't matter as much. If it's something people want, you don't have to you don't have to talk about it endlessly because they're like, wow, no, I want that because the outcome is what I want.
Yeah, it's like the big brands that you see, like if you think about like Nike or Apple or a lot of these like big brands, like their marketing is not, I mean, they've got it, but it's a lot more subtle and subdued than you'd see in most DR stuff because people are coming to them wanting the outcome. They're wanting that status. They're wanting that product. And like similar to what Isaac is saying here in the chat is it also depends on their emotional state. So where you're selling to, like if they're, wanting to go to a Spartan race, you don't see a lot of advertisements for Spartan races. I mean, you may see some, but it's not as aggressive as some of the DR stuff, specifically because people are searching it out. Like you don't need to be sold on something you want to do or a goal that you have.
Well, that's a cool example. So like a Spartan race, how would I promote a Spartan race? I would challenge your manhood or your womanhood or your toughness. Like people that are going to sign up for a Spartan race want to be challenged like that. So like, so I just be like, are you even tough enough to do this? Most people aren't, but if you think you are, you can sign up, but you probably won't make it. That's what I would do because that doesn't work for everyone. Again, and Isaac is right. That group of people, that's how I would sell that to them. Because that's a Spartan race, and there are plenty, you've seen the gurus that like talk shit to their people. Like there's a lot of insecure men that like that stuff, like being challenged and belittled, if you will, like, cause that, whatever. But in the end, people are lazy and selfish and that's, Oh, and I was gonna, yeah, some interesting about like Apple and Nike. This is a big thing that people get confused on, like especially like people not in marketing, like, oh, did you write that Nike ad? I'm like, no, that's not what I do. Like Nike and Apple don't need all they need. They just want you to know they're there because you already know they're there. You know they have shit. They just don't want you to forget. Coca-Cola. Like, why are there so many Coke ads? You just have to know Coke's around. Like, that's a completely different. They have a real brand. All these people talking about branding. Well, most people I know, they don't have a brand. They have a fucking offer or business that's not really a brand. Nike is a brand. Coca-Cola is a brand. That, that's a different world. That's different type of marketing. So I try and like, it's hard to explain to people like, that's not what I do. That's a different kind of marketing because that's a real brand. It's just brand marketing and just not what I do.
Well, in some ways, like brand marketing it's still similar in that you're still eliciting an emotion or a desire or an outcome that they want, like the Coke ads, like makes you thirsty for a Coke, reminds you how tasty it is, or, Nike or Apple or any of these other ones, Mercedes, Land Rover, whatever. It's the status that you get. It's that feeling of freedom. Like you would, what is that Outback car or whatever?
Subaru Outback.
Yeah. When they do like they've got the guy on the back who's parasailing off the back of the car.
Yeah. I mean, it's all, you're selling an identity, and that's how I think of e-com. Back to the e-com thing. You're selling an identity. Cars. And I just saw a post on this from someone the other day, and it's spot on. Like, Rolex isn't selling a watch, they're selling an identity. Mercedes isn't selling a car, they're selling an identity. Like,
yeah.
And like, that's how I approached. So back, I think Trey hired me to write some emails for like some tumblers. It's just a cup. Same cup, everyone like a Yeti cup, same kind that everyone has. And I'm like, fuck, how am I going to write an editorial for this? But it was for gun lovers, like 1776, Second Amendment. And I'm like, okay, easy. If you're not selling the cup, you're selling the Second Amendment saying on the cup. And once I realized that's what it was, it's simple. You're selling an identity. And these people's identity in this case are gun owners that love the Second Amendment and freedom. Like, that's how they identify. And then so the easiest thing, when I write e-com, I go on Amazon, I find the same product, and I'll go through thousands of testimonials and copy and paste the good ones. That's that simple. You find what people like about it, and you're like, they love to collect liberals' tears. It's the same. I kept seeing this comment over and over, so I put that in the copy, and they eat that shit up.
Yeah.
But Jake Blue, where's Jake Blue? Is Jake here?
Jake's not here, but Isaac loves to talk about Jake Blue and his adventure.
I haven't seen Jake in a while, but he does the kind of stuff I like to do. He's better looking though.
He is awesome, man. We're going to Salem for Halloween this year for the adventure crew. It's going to be so much fun. I'm so excited. It's the first adventure crew of Jake's that I get to go on, and should be good. I think Isaac's going to be it too.
I might want to go now. I'm going to be on the East Coast now.
You should definitely come. It's going to be fun. Sharon's over here too. Both of you guys, get your booties up here.
It's so weird. I'm like,
adventure crew.
Jake Blue's adventure crew. It's Jake does these. You see Jake. He's an adventure king over there. He's always off doing some kind of craziness, and so he's got these really fun groups that he's doing now, where he curates really an experience for you. And so we're going to go to Salem. I think we're going to like a bunch of costume shops, but a bunch of ghost tours. We're going to dress up and just be Halloween fanatics and learn about Salem witch trials and stuff. Like, it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to start an adventure company before I just figured out how to have a business. It was just not the route I wanted to go. Kind of similar to what Jake's doing, but not. But I like just getting on my laptop and being able to do stuff on my laptop, man. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's so much more involved with like that travel stuff. I don't know. But that's awesome. I love seeing his stuff. He's always doing something cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun. I mean, there's definitely gonna be time for us to all work too. So like it's like a work and adventure trip, which is it's ideal.
Because we're all always working, yes, on our lap. Yes, that's the thing.
What is a vacation? Let's be real.
Well, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, but in the end, it's a blessing because I just went to the beach with my family and I still had to do a few things, but I'm not on my laptop all day. I wouldn't, if I was back in my old job, I wouldn't have been at the beach at all because I'd be at a fucking airplane hangar somewhere, sweating my ass off. So it's a blessing, but yeah, I definitely, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I just don't want to do the work sometimes and just never ends. But that's a good thing. I have had it end. And that was worse than when the work doesn't come in, you get real thankful for the opportunities.
No, it's definitely, yeah, it can definitely be a roller coaster. And I know I've ridden this roller coaster for far too long and I've had many lows and many highs. And like, it's like figuring out the balance of it. But the fact that we do get to work from wherever we want, we can go on these adventures, we can have that flexibility to work and still work from anywhere. You can go like, you like to do a bunch of mountain biking stuff. I remember when we were talking about this freelance career before at actually Stefan's house, where I recorded that fun video of you. You had been traveling around in your truck and mountain biking around on some adventures, and like that kind of experience, you don't really get it just from any career or corporate or anything. Like you have to have something like this.
Dude, and for me, time freedom is the number one thing. That's kind of why I got into this world, freelance world, if you will, and direct response world. Time freedom, because I never, I gotta be honest, I never really liked having a job or a boss or having to go places. But I was in Philly. I took the train down to go meet Robin Burke, who's on this call, for some dinner. And I'm on the train and I'm like looking around. There's like people in like work clothes and like going to jobs and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, that would be terrible. Like every time, you should remind yourself, go look at what other people are doing that's not in our world, and I like to do it because I'm very thankful for where I'm at. Because dude, most people don't have the freedom that we have, most people. And I feel like we kind of get used to it, maybe take it for granted, but don't. Because you might have to take a train to a job one day, you have to put on pants and talk to people all day, like,
And that's the thing is like, this is like we were talking about before. It's like selling to identities. Like this is an identity of ours, like versus where like we get these abilities and experiences. And I think that post was in the Nothing Held Back. I think that was one of Alan's, but it's the identity of being able to be a marketer and have this flexibility to, wear what we want when we want, to work where we want when we want, to not have a boss, not have to like, take the train in somewhere or take an hour and a half commute to work and all these little things. Like there's a lot of like grit that goes into this kind of like career and a lot of, learning and a lot of, takes a lot, but that freedom in the end is ultimately like what we're all working for. So, I do want to ask Isaac had a couple good questions in here, while we're kind of going down this path is, how do you think that marketers' personality and characteristics impacts their career path? There are a ton of people starting their own offers and such right now. And I think it's because they realize just making money in less time wasn't enough.
I feel like the more you're willing to take risks, this plays in your personality, and fail and be uncomfortable, the more you're going to succeed. So if your personality, and I'll pick on introverts for a second, like I don't want to go to events, I want to talk to people, I want to stay in my basement on my laptop. It's not going to work. You've So if that's your personality, you can still be an introvert, which apparently John Caprani does not believe exists. But you have to take risks, even if that's your personality. So I think that for me, I'm not afraid to embarrass myself or take risks. So that my personality, I think, helped play into my success. This is something that Ian said when I first started getting in this was, I still remember this to this day. He's like, when you're starting out, you need to create chaos. It's different as you go along, but there's nothing you can do that's going to like fuck up your journey because you're brand new. So I was always like, dude, creating chaos. So I like just do random shit and talk to random people and not be afraid. So like, all right, here's an example. I took, when I first got in this, I was following a lot of Ian Stanley stuff. And I signed up for his monthly program, whatever. So he sends you $20 in the mail when you sign up, and he's like, you have to give away the $20. I'm like, okay. So everybody like, then you're supposed to tell the story. And I'm reading these stories, and I'm like, these people are kind of lame. So I'm like, tell you what I'm going to do with my $20. I Googled Mike Geary's address because I knew Mike Geary's a successful person in this industry. So I Googled his address. I wrote him a letter saying, hey, I'm giving you $20. I don't want it back, but if, here's my email address. If you feel uncomfortable, you can give it back. He also lives up here. So he fucking emailed me. He was like, hey, what's going on? He's like, I see you're a copywriter. I'm like, I'm studying copywriting. I'm not actually a copywriter. But that was my $20. Is I'm like, I mailed it to the millionaire up the street just to see what would happen. Guess what? We go skiing and shit together now. So
And
I see him around
too, right?
I see him around. So I mean, it's just like I think that's how your personality. I think also being yourself. I was just talking. I guess I was talking about this a lot. Being yourself is important. People can see you when you're putting on a front, if you will. I've seen Ron Lynch straight up call someone out at an event because he's like, what do you do? And they just started kind of like, people talk about what they do, but vaguely and make it sound better than it is or more important. And you can tell. So Ron was like, hey, and they're just like, oh, yeah. And he's like, dude, you're just like full of shit posturing. Like, why don't you just tell me? And I was like, oh, fuck. See, that's why, fuck. Just be yourself, man, and just be on it. Like, don't try and be somebody you're not. Because again, I can tell, everyone can tell. So luckily, enough people tend to like me that I can get by. No, not everyone's going to like you, and that's okay. I don't want everyone to like me, but I definitely have been just happier and more successful when I'm doing something outrageous or just being myself. So if you feel like you got to hide your personality, I think you should just let it fly, whatever it is.
It's back to that authenticity. It's the same with like selling to customers is selling yourself. Doesn't have to be selling as much as like you attract what is attracted to you when you are your authentic self. Like people are attracted who are similar, are going to be more attracted to you because that's, they feel aligned with, who you are as a person. But if you can't be yourself and you can't be authentic, either in your marketing or in who you are as a person, then you're just going to, push people away, or you're going to attract people who are inauthentic and who are not going to be ideal customers or clients or colleagues or just people around you. It's go ahead.
And listen, I've gone on calls and turned down good gigs because like I just did not click with this person, and I've turned down good money. I mean, luckily, if I'm starving, I'm probably going to take a gig. I'm not trying to act like I'm better than anyone else, but I'm at the point in my career to where I can mostly pick and choose who I want to work with. I don't have to take shitty gigs. So I got on a call, this has happened a couple times only, but get on a call and the They didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing wrong other than I just don't like the way you operate. I don't like the way we talk to each other. This isn't a vibe. I like to work with people that I like. That's important to me because I was forced, like I was in the military for a while and I worked on airplanes. I've been forced to work with people I don't like. And that just really does not make me happy, right? So now I don't do that anymore. I work with people I like. But nowadays, I mean, on that subject, in case you don't know, I have like ADD, so just you have to follow along. On this subject, I mostly work with the same clients over and over. That's it. Everyone's like, I need more clients. I'm like, do you? What about the ones you have? Like, what happened to that? And trust me, things move on and things are always changing. But for me, working with the same clients, you don't have to go find new ones. You know each other. I'm still working with the first client I ever wrote my first real VSL that I wrote. Still working with this person today.
That's huge.
It was over 3 years ago. And I've well over multiple six figures made from this one client. I'm starting a new project with them this week. I want people to understand, like, it's so much better to keep working with the same people instead of just, and you should look at yourself. If you have that much churn, like, what are you doing wrong? Or what, it may not be you. What are you working with the right clients? That's the other thing. You can't shine if your client doesn't know what they're doing. You're not going to get the results. You could do all the right things on your end. If the offer owner is not doing what they need to do, it's all for nothing. So, and I've been there too. So sometimes it's you, sometimes it's them. But if you're always having to get new clients because you're never working with I think you need to maybe look at yourself, look at who you're working with and figure out why that is.
Yeah, 100%. And if it's not, if you're not aligning with a client or a project and you're not able to deliver on it, figure out what you are aligning with, but also making sure that you're keeping your clients long-term, taking care of them. So over delivering or what other ways do you do that you're able to keep them around so long-term? And I mean, 6 figures off of one client in a few years is huge. So how do you keep that relationship?
I make them a lot of money. is the short answer. Results. That I'm not an egotistical fucking asshole like some of the people in our industry. I don't have any of that. Just be easy to work with and do what you need, results. Those are two important. Because I know people, I know people that are easy to work with, but the results kind of suck. And then I know on the flip side, I know people really good at what they do, but this is a small industry, and I've heard a lot of shit talk about so-and-so's ego and how, don't be like that. Be easy to work with. And if you're difficult to work with, the word gets around really quick. And I'm not going to act like I've never fucked up on a project. I'm not saying that. I'm a human just like everyone else, but I don't make a habit of it. If something goes wrong, I'm like, what happened there? How can I avoid that? If you make people money, they're going to keep coming back. That's what I think. And just be easy to work with. I'm easy. And I like doing bigger projects. I don't like a ton daily emails is not really my thing. I don't like to do the thing, or I want a big project and I want a month to do it. So I don't have to get on a call with you every day to go over the shit. I don't want to do that. So for this one client, we hardly talk. It's hey, I got another project. When are you free? And then I just do it and I give it to him. It's pretty fun. And I'm I love this client because they don't fuck with me. they love, like, the relationship's great because they don't bother me. They're not on my ass. And I just give them the shit they want and it keeps working. So it's easy when it's easy. Yes. Like that.
Yeah. I trust you and you deliver. It's a lot smoother when there's that trust in that relationship. So. And
I love to it feels great to, it's to be appreciated too. I'll say that.
Yeah. That goes.
The people I work with appreciate me, and that's something that was lacking in my previous career. Like, no one appreciates you, and give a fuck. So when someone actually appreciates when you do a good job, it's like, sweet. And then they come back. That's me is the ultimate compliment. Like, hey, will you do some more work for us? Yeah. No. Yeah. Just don't be a douchebag. Just don't do that.
Yeah, it's hard for some people, but I agree. Like, I've left a lot of like really big, really good clients because I didn't feel appreciated, and I'm not as good at when I leave people. When I leave, I kind of make it a mess so that I never go back, which is not the best way to do it. I will admit, I am working on that. But yeah, I mean, it's that appreciation goes a long way. It goes such a long way because like nobody, especially like as who we are, like we don't have to work for anybody. We don't want to work for anybody. So for contractors and anything like that, I feel like you really need to feel that appreciation in order for you to want to stick around. And that's the best way to keep team members on board is just actually show your appreciation for them. And then getting that good working relationship where you are able to come back and like continue to get them good results, and you understand their audience, you understand them, how they work, how to deliver for them. It's, it just is a consistent money maker, but also a good relationship to have. So yeah, I'm going to start talking. I'm going to open it up to see if anybody else wants to ask Rob any more questions. I really appreciate you being here. This has been really freaking awesome. It's been really awesome.
Thanks for letting me come on and do my ADD rambling. I don't get to do it that often anymore, so thanks.
A lot of nuggets dropped there, man. You're learning a lot from a lot of people, and I feel like learning anything we regurgitate or share with people is just something that we learned from somewhere else that we're expanding upon with our own experience and knowledge. Like, there's no new big ideas. There's no like, I just came up with this. It's like, from where? So
it's all the same shit.
It's all the same. And the fact that, you have all this experience, you have all this knowledge, and, you've been learning from so many people, and, your own experiences, everything, like it shows you have a lot of knowledge. You really help your clients, and I'm super grateful that you were sharing this with us. So thank you.
I want to hear a question from Robin. It's been here the whole call. Yeah. Robin, what kind of question do you have?
Hey, what's up, Rob? Hi, Michele. Hey, it's good to be here. It's good to be here. What kind of question do I have? I was talking about you on a call just before this call, about how you sort of came in looking at Scott, who was like a little bit ahead of you, and how I'm coming in just a bit behind you and keeping an eye on what you're doing and looking at the stuff you're writing. I don't know if I have a question, but I'm just sort of, I like what you do, the style of, writing and just the approach to it all and getting along with you and that world of like the spiritual copywriting stuff. Thing is, you see, right now I'm doing too much. I keep, the whole chaos theory thing. It's like I brought it back in again. A couple of years into full-time, brought it back in again, which is great. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, like calls every day. Like today I have calls all the way up till 4, just random new different things. A lot of fresh air, fresh ideas, but it's kind of exhausting, different directions. But it's helping me, move into where's next, or what to double down on, what clients, like you say, are the ones who look good, that you work well with. And I'm still pulled in that direction. That was sort of an idea and an inkling. And this morning had a great call with one of the older original guys and that whole thing. From what I understand, trained a bunch of them and that sort of reinforced it. So anyway, no question there. Good to be here. Good to see you.
Yeah. Robin's got what it takes. He's somebody to watch. I've been watching him quietly from the corner. He's got it. So you'll have to have him on one day too.
He is. He is. We haven't said the
Thanks,
date.
we're on our way. Yeah, we were talking about that too.
We are. Yes, it's going to be awesome.
I feel like some people just have it and they're going to succeed. And I feel like some people just don't have it. And I've been watching, from being like in Copy Accelerator and stuff, like people come and go. And you can kind of tell who's going to make it and who's not usually. My intuition's really on point too, but Robin's going to make it. He's already making it. He's already made it. So he has it.
Yep.
That's
Thanks,
something
dude.
I can't explain, that I also don't like talking about it because I feel bad. There are people I feel like I need to tell that they should quit copywriting. Like,
Yeah,
I've been going at it for a long time and still don't get the very basics of it. And I'm like, if you've been doing this for multiple years and you still don't understand the basics, like, it's not for everyone. Or they just like have to ask a question, should I use 2 spaces after my period? Like, just fucking people that have to have their hands held or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, instead of just doing stuff, like they have to have someone hold their hand. And that's how I feel like how some of these gurus keep people. They can't go out on their own because they have the guru holding their hand. And I felt that way at one time, even like, oh God, I can't go out on my own. Well, that's bullshit. So I was just trying to say Robin has it, and I don't know how to explain it, but some people have it and some people don't. Isaac, I want to make sure I get your question, buddy.
Yeah, so one of the things that I like the most about business is just how little room, there's room for bullshit, but then there's also not room for it, right? And so a lot of people's bullshit is ultimately what ends up holding them back and so on. And I guess I'm just curious what your kind of take on how the parallel development of like someone's kind of, I'll say attitude rather than mindset, because mindset's been overdone, but like many things in DR, and then also their careers, because even, for example, like Alan's said before, that a lot of the difference between the level that somebody's at isn't even necessarily inherent skill level or whatever, but it's more so just what they're telling themselves or what they're not telling themselves and so on. And yeah, before I turn it into a monologue, curious what you think.
I mean, there's more. Here's the thing that no one talks. You rarely hear about in business is there's a lot of luck involved, and you have to put yourself in the position. Like, I think luck is what do they say? What's the saying? When preparation meets opportunity, I fully believe that. Because you can be really good. You may be the best marketer on the planet, but if you're just sitting in your basement, who's going to know? Or if you don't make, like this guy, so like the guy I was referring to, the client I've been working with for over 3 years. What if I never had saw this job posting, right? I wouldn't have, that's 3 years worth of work, all from one job posting that I happened to come across and apply for, that I knew I could figure it out, the job, but I was new to me. So like, I feel like you have to be able to be like, I can figure this out. I like that's a big, that's what I like. I think it's Hermosi, this, I think it's Alan too. Like, if someone else can learn something, I can do it to an extent. Like, I'm not good at math. I'm not going to try that. But And then, as far as like marketing or anything that can be learned, you can learn it. That's my attitude. And then go ahead.
So would you say that it just comes back to, as cliche as it might sound, just fear then? Like being afraid I'm not qualified for this thing, being afraid of going outside the mastermind and actually approaching somebody, being afraid of trying a new kind of role, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. I mean, it's scary, right? It's those of us in there that are doing this, we have no guaranteed income. We have to we eat what we kill, if you will. So I just, it's fear, but I think you have to make friends with fear. Something I learned, Tim Ferriss talks about fear setting. You sit down and you think, what's the worst thing that can happen if this goes wrong? And then once you look at it, like, most of the time you're going to realize the worst thing that can happen is not that bad. Once you sit down and think about it, like, because most of our, I'm afraid, but then you sit down, you write it, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'll be embarrassed. Okay, you're embarrassed. So fucking what? You're going to have to get over that and just be okay with failing. But I think you have to have the mindset of using that fear to motivate you, like, I can figure this out. So how many gigs have I applied for that? I mean, in copywriting, no one grew up copywriting. None of us, you have to start somewhere, right? So in order to get better, you're going to have to take on gigs that you're not necessarily fully qualified for. I don't know if that's I'm not using the right language there, but you have to learn somehow, and you learn by doing. At least I do.
It does make sense though, because like even kids, on the other hand, if kids convince their parents to buy them stuff that they don't need, right? So in a certain way, we're marketing from a very early age. So it's, there's always a different facet to it that I guess you can use to your advantage or turn into, oh, this is why I can't do that. I haven't been marketing since I was a kid. It's like, well, on the other hand, we've all been marketing since we were kids,
Everything's marketing. Yeah. I think that hurry up and fail. That's my favorite thing.
I like that.
And it plays in because no one wants to fail. We're afraid to fail. Like, where's this fear coming from, Isaac? Well, we don't want to fail. But if you don't fail, you're not going to succeed. You have to fail. Hurry. The faster you fail, the faster you'll succeed, because you have to get that out of your way. You're not going to go from point A to point B, whatever whatever your end goal is, income wise or whatever, business wise. You are not going to get there without failing. That's fact. So you need to get comfortable with your fear and use it for motivation. That's just how I look at it. Knowing that you're going to fail and being okay with it, that's a big step. Because if you're too afraid to fail, it's not going to happen. You have to go through that. And that's why I feel like so many people don't succeed at things they want to succeed at, and they stay in their whatever job they don't like because they're comfortable there. They're already doing it. Can't fail. Or if I try this new thing, not only am I probably going to, actually, I know I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail once, twice, 3 times. I don't know. You're going to fail many times, but you have to be okay with that. So I think you need to use that fear as a motivation. It's okay to be, we're human beings. Like, it's okay to be nervous about, I took on this big project and I realize now that it's going to bomb. Like, no one wants to do that. That's fear. But again, I just think you have to use it as motivation. Don't block it out. I don't think that blocking it out is, or being not being okay with fear. I think you just need to take that and use it. I use all these emotions. I've had a chip on my shoulder most of my life. That's just how I grew up, because I played football and I'm like the smallest guy on the team, but that's just always, and I feel like when I started dipping my toes in business, having that chip on my shoulder was helpful. to a point. I don't think it serves me much anymore. But like taking frustrations, fear, all those emotions and using them to your advantage.
I like how you mention it that way too, because when it comes back to the attitude thing, obviously there are people succeeding with all kinds of different backgrounds, right? There are people who are just about, I live and breathe the work is it's what I want to do. It's not because I have to do it. It's just, if I wasn't doing this, I would be doing something else. If I wasn't doing that, I'd be doing something else. And then you have people who they needed to make a lot of money in a lot less time because they wanted to be able to have a good life with their children. And if they're spending their whole week working to make the same amount of money, then they can't do that. But then interestingly enough, there are also people who have those same kinds of traits, but who are not succeeding. And so, for example, there's the person who joins like the co-working call or whatever, and they have a family. But then there's somebody else who doesn't join a co-working call because they say, well, I need to take care of my family. And I guess, what do you think are some of the things that divide those people out that make some people have the it factor, I guess, that you were talking about, versus the people who might have the same kind of situation? I know everything's unique, but then, they don't pull through.
I think it's refusing to fucking give up. I think there's so much power in just refusing to quit. But I mean, I've gone through my ups and downs freelancing, right? And I didn't quit. I just refused to give in. And I think that is a personality trait that's how you're going to win. You're going to fail, but shit's going to happen. And you have to get up off the ground and be resilient and just don't quit. If you don't quit, like if you never quit, you're not going to lose for the most part. Again, I was just talking about like copywriting, for example, isn't for everyone. Not everyone's going to be a copywriter. So, but I think if you plug at it long enough, like you're going to be okay enough. Does that make sense? Like if you just don't give up, good shit's going to happen. I know that sounds cliche and almost like a cop out, but that's just truly what I believe. You fucking refuse to give up and you're going to win.
Yeah. I mean, at the macro level,
that plays right into the failing thing, right? You're going to get a black eye and you're going to have to get back up and do the shit again. But a lot of people don't have that toughness. It's like, oh, fuck, I failed. Guess I better go back to my job where it's safe. So I don't know. For me personally, I've always been a risk taker. I'd rather take a risk than play it safe and be miserable. If that makes sense, like could have stayed in my job, but I hated it. Didn't have to go out on my own where there's no guaranteed income and I have to find my own clients. Like I chose that, but I would rather do that than be afraid and give up. Just resilience, it's powerful. So I just say get back up off the mat. You got 2 black eyes, just keep going. I think that's what separates those people, in my opinion. It's just that refusing to quit.
So do you think at the micro level then that's essentially it requires you accepting that you can overcome something? Because there's certainly something to be said for just keep going. But I think there are even, I don't know if subconscious decisions that are made, but even just believing that, for example, you're going in the right direction. Because if you think that continuing to go in that direction will ultimately lead to wherever you're going, you do still have to have that inherent, I guess, belief that you either A, are going in the right direction, that going farther is going to even help, or B, that even if you go, in quotes, too far, that you will still be the kind of person who, if you realize you need to go in a different direction, you'll just go in that different direction. Because I think that a lot of the people, whenever I hear about the excuses and I see people just kind of they were doing okay. They had some great months, they had this 10K month, or they had this 9K month, or 13K month, or whatever. And then they just kind of disappear, or you hear them talking about how hard it is to get clients, like, for most of the time, and so on. I feel like there has to be some kind of micro element, moment to moment, that's impacting that. You know what I mean? Because if you have a family, for example, and I use this as an example because I don't, so I'm trying to extrapolate it to people who would have, in quotes, like a challenge that I don't. You can day to day say, I'm going to continue being a marketer, but that isn't the same as being able to say in the moment, well, I'm going to commit to doing this work when my kid wants me to go outside and play with them, because I know that doing this work is going to enable me to stay true to the obligation for performing my service, so I can make the money, so I can have the damn time to go in and play with them and not be broken wondering if the water's going to get turned off and so on,
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I'm here to ask tough questions.
The family thing, it's a constant struggle, I would say, with that. And for me, you do need to feel like you're going in the right direction, right? So when I started copywriting, I'm an impatient person. I was like, I have to be patient. So my mantra was one foot in front of the other. And more than even money, like, I was looking for gigs that I could level up, if you will, and leverage to get better and use those results to get to better clients. Because, when you start, you're working with shitty clients because you're new. That's how it works. So my whole goal is to get better clients, one foot in front of the other. And sometimes it feels like you're not going anywhere, but you're like, no, one foot in front of the other, like, stay calm. So I think that'll sabotage you too. You get impatient, like, I'm not a millionaire yet. Fuck this. Like, well, it's one foot in front of the other, buddy. But if you felt like you're not going in the right direction, I mean, I guess you should figure out, it's not good to keep going in the wrong direction, right? I guess that's a good point, because it's interesting how I know people are like, so just an example, copywriters that have been writing for years, like multiple years, and they're still writing like $100 emails. And I'm like, seems like you're doing something wrong. Like, you're not going in the right direction if you've been writing copy for 4 years and you're writing $100 emails. I think, like, you should be further along than that. So I don't know, dude. I think it's important to feel like you're progressing, to me anyway. So I'm always striving to progress. Now I'm just progressing for me is just keeping up with the work I have right now, because I have a bunch of shit to do. And as Robin and I were talking about the next day, how do we make money while we sleep? That's my next thing to figure out. Because I love the freelancing thing. I love the opportunity to make the money, but I don't like it being my only, you know what I mean? I want to have an offer that makes money while I sleep.
Yeah, you don't want it to be an on-off switch. You want the phantom power, so to speak.
In the end, I make good money.
And with this new method,
I'm still trading time for money, right? Because I'm writing. If I don't write the copy, I don't get paid. So I'm still trading time for money, just in a different way, and for more money. But eventually, again, I want to have, an offer that I can wake up one day and be like, oh, someone bought my thing. Sweet. That's great. That's my next step. But I always want to have freelancing as an option. Like, if the right project comes along, I want to be able to, like, I'll work with you on that. And right now, I'm always looking for JV opportunities where I get that's my way of kind of getting in on some of these businesses, is just getting a percentage, partnerships, if you will. So that's kind of how I look at things right now. I'm happy to do my one-off funnels that people want to pay me, but I'm always looking for partnership opportunities. And I'm to find out, there's a lot of people out there looking for that type of, you just got to find the right one. There's so much out there. I think that's more than anything is finding the right opportunity, because there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting how there's the fear component as like an emotional element, but then there's also kind of the model / framework kind of element of, if you get into marketing as a copywriter, for example, to have the, I guess, neuroplasticity of it, to understand that that's a component of what you do. But then as soon as you're thinking about, for example, marketing strategy, like how many emails are we going to use? Are we going to use YouTube ads versus Facebook ads? Is it going to be more organic? Whatever, how many upsells, which ones, etc. You are being a marketer, not just a copywriter in that sense. But if people only think of themselves as copywriters, then in a certain sense, they're being static. And that could be, I think, maybe a reason why somebody would continue doing those $100 emails. Because yeah, dude, I didn't log my milestone of the first time I charged $125 for an email, and then 150, 175, 200, whatever it was. But I was waiting to do it rather than afraid to do it. And I think it goes in like with what you're talking about, which is to be, no, Robin, don't fly off. All right. There we go. So yeah, just that, I guess that desire to grow and adapt rather than maybe just kind of expanding the selling point that got you in, which is just make more money in less time. Because I think that the people who stagnate, at least from what I'm noticing, I think you've been doing this longer than me, they just seem to kind of stay in the same place that they were when they joined the industry, rather than like what you're saying, you wanted something where, maybe you didn't realize at the time, but where you would be appreciated or that you could make the money in less time, et cetera, et cetera. But now you're at the point where you could live comfortably just doing what you're doing, but you're not where you were when you first entered. And that's not all that you want anymore in that sense too. So it seems to me that everybody who is doing great is always expanding beyond what they just came into, which I guess, again, sounds kind of obvious, but
But it's not obvious to people, though. You figured it out. I was blessed so I hired a coach like as soon as I discovered copywriting, and Mike Abramoff was one of my first coaches. And he's the one that told me, like, right off the bat, like, as soon as I started copywriting, do not corner yourself as a copywriter. You're a marketer, and then some. So from day one, I was like, I'm a marketer, specializes in copywriting. But you're cornering yourself, and you're just like, yeah, like you said, you're doing the same. I'm just writing $100 emails for 4 years. And positioning yourself as a copywriter, you're not doing yourself any favors, right? Because in reality, you are so much more. You should be. I just signed up to take a course with Russ Reynolds. I think that's his last. So anyways, it's a CRO course because I'm doing this shit for free anyway for my clients, right? But he's figured out how to package his CRO services so that he's actually getting paid. The way I do it is I show how fucking smart I am by giving them the CRO, and then they hire me for copy. That's really how it works. And then I want my copy to convert, so I just give them all this free advice, if you will. So I saw Russ Reynolds throw up some posts about how he gets paid for his CRO, and he's starting a course. So guess what I'm starting next week? CRO course. Because I'm not just a copywriter, not even close. Yeah, that's a big part of it. And that's the part most people can't do is the copywriting, but I'm a big picture kind of guy, so much more than just writing your emails. And I think that if you corner yourself, like you said, Isaac, I don't even call myself a copywriter, I'm a marketer. Don't corner yourself like that. And even then, what are you? You could be a business owner, you could be anything you want. You don't have to just be what you know. I feel like you said, people get stuck. They can't think just look at big picture. I'm always looking at big picture instead of getting stuck under some guru's program. It sounds like I'm trashing guru. If it does, like, that's not really my intention. If people get stuck, like you're saying, I've seen it. People get stuck. I felt that way. Even like, I need my guru to, in case something happens. But if anything, I think breaking free and realizing you can do, you're a tough individual and you can make things happen is very freeing and powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to, and Michele, I mean, that I can talk until the ends of the earth. So let me know if I'm ever drawing things out, or Rob, like I can talk and talk and talk if there's good people to talk to. But I think that the guru thing, I never noticed if somebody is called a guru as a compliment, so it's always like an inherently skeptical thing. So in my mind, a guru is essentially, this is somebody who has a platform, but they're not providing value to those who invest in it, is basically kind of the assumption that I'm hearing when somebody talks about gurus. So I think that's a way that, like, for example, somebody could call like Alan Sultan a guru in the sense that he is, widely known, lots of people listen to what he says, but it's not, it's not the Dan Law kind of situation where people feel like that they were just ripped off and for the most part. But it's interesting to me and how that psychology works, because if you think about it, like even just like a pride of lions, you have the group and then they protect each other, they help hunt, they help watch the cubs and so on. But then eventually, if like as one of the lions gets older, like one of the male lions gets older, say that he wants to run the pride or say that he wants to create his own pride or so on. It's interesting to me how, like, human psychology, we're still animals, right? So it's funny how, like, Masterminds, it's your pride of lions. It's this safe place where you can get the nourishment you need to become a bigger lion, so to speak. I mean, it's a very guy audience kind of way of looking at it, I suppose. But, but then eventually you feel, you know what? I bite pretty hard. My claws are pretty sharp. I feel like I can just go out and get my own elephant. And then somebody else sees it's like, wow, it's pretty awesome. You took down an elephant all on your own. And then they're like, oh, well, how did you do it? And so you end up kind of being the new, in quotes, guru, almost without realizing it, which is when you start getting those random people messaging you expecting tons of copy feedback for free, or, with this opportunity. It's like, do you need a junior copywriter? And so I'm like, dude, ma'am, who are you?
Yeah, I don't really respond to people messaging me that I don't know. That kind of shit. Yeah. That's one thing I like about Alan. I haven't been in his Nothing Held Back in a while, but I'll say this. One thing I like about what he teaches is self-empowerment. That's one of my favorite things about Alan. He's like, that's kind of why he kind of poo-poos on gurus a little bit, if you've been around Alan, he does that a little bit. But because he's all about self-empowerment. He's like, you can do that. If someone else can do it, you can too. And that's my mentality. Like, you need to believe in yourself. You'll figure it out. It's not that you have it all figured out, but you will figure it out because you're not going to quit. And I'm tired of giving them my money, so that's why. Some of these gurus are expensive, so. But people get stuck. They're afraid because they don't have self-belief in themselves.
Yeah, that's
so if there's anything I'll say on this call is believe in yourself. You can do it. That's how you succeed.
I totally agree. I think that's a huge thing that people are missing, or I feel like people are missing from a lot of the gurus is it's more like follow me and my advice, but there's never really a self-empowering end, which is what I really appreciate about what Alan shares is really encouraging and removing a lot of limiting beliefs for people so they can step out and, do the things that they need to do to make the career that you want and to create the life that you want. It's all about, getting uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, but putting yourself out there, taking the risk, and just following through and keeping going. Like if you keep going, you'll find success eventually, finding the lessons in your failure and continuing to push through those. And I think the consistent learning too is a really big thing, because you don't need to be in every guru program or every program all of the time, but I feel like you do pick up a lot of good tidbits from a lot of different areas and a lot of different people. And it's like a university. You don't want to only learn from one, you want to learn from many. And I think that they also all bring in a lot of different networks for you to connect and collaborate on. So I'm excited to hear about this Russ Reynolds CRO work. Like, you'll have to update us on that, because that sounds really interesting. I know that's been a really hot one lately, is like, CMO and CRO is a big one for a lot of people right now.
Yeah. I know, like CRO, because you're just conversion rate optimization, like not managing things like I'm looking at your thing and just deciding how we can leverage it better to make more. That's fun to me. The CMO thing, anyway, it's different. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. He has a lot of experience, so yeah, I'm always learning. One thing about copywriters is you're like eternally curious. That's me. But don't get caught up. I mean, we just talked about it, but just a lot of copywriters learn, and never actually do the thing. That's bad. So. Yeah,
a lot of business owners do that. It's you got to spend time implementing too. You can't just consistently be learning and unless you're actually doing and implementing these things too. So
like you can read 30 books on how to surf, but unless you get in the water, you're not going to fucking know how to surf. It's just it. I don't care about your books. Get on the board.
Reminds me of this movie Gidget I used to watch. It's one of my favorite movies from like the 50s, and like she's like reading books on surfing and everything, but getting in the actual water is how you do it. You just got to jump in, man. You just got to fucking do it. But yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for being here, Rob. I really appreciate this. This is great.
Thanks.
Is there
It's
anything?
been fun.
This has been really cool. I think there's a lot of great information here. So is there anything you feel like you want to like end off with or share, or what do you think?
I think I've said it all. Believe in yourself, take risks, and fail fast. And don't quit.
And don't be a douchebag, according
Don't
to
be
much of the advice you gave.
Because none of that other shit's going to matter if you're a douchebag. So don't do that.
Yep. Don't be a pain, because nobody wants to work with that. Nobody has time and they don't care to. So that's all it is. Simple. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. This has been super fun. And I appreciate it. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Cool. It's great coming out from under my rock and chatting for a bit. So thanks for inviting me. And who's next week? I'll see you next week.
I think next week is Misty Williams on Operation.
Oh shit. Yeah.
She's good.
I'll definitely be on there. Alrighty. Thanks so much, Michelle. Isaac. Take it easy, brother.
Have a good weekend.
Later.
You guys.
Bye, guys.